Hello, Amber. How are you? Hey, Sean.
Hey Keith, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Hey Amber.
Hey Keith, hi Sean, how are you? I
Doing
was
well.
trying to get my headset to cooperate.
Yeah.
Hey, Beth.
Hi Keith, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. You know, it's Monday.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Hi,
How are you?
Good.
Speaker.
We're just going to wait another minute or two. We're just missing a couple of people. All right. I think we will get started. Welcome, everyone, to the ARPA Day Committee meeting for Monday, December 4th. As always, the meeting of the ARPA Day Transformational Committee are public meetings as defined by the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act and should follow these guidelines. As this public meeting is held virtually, it will be recorded and made available to view on the DDS website. Committee members must make a good faith effort to state their names and title if applicable each time they speak during the meeting. If a committee member would like to speak, please raise your hand and one of the co-chairs will acknowledge you. There is no public comment portion to this meeting. Members of the public are able to join, watch, and listen only. All right, first thing is the approval of the 9/11/2023 minutes. Any questions, concerns, changes to the minutes? Could I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Jennifer Keithley, UCP of Eastern Connecticut.
Jennifer? And a second?
Second, Beth Fisher, Keen Employment Opportunities.
Thank you, Beth. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes have passed. All right, next we have a Selm Commission update, and Trevor, I see you're on. You're on, ready to go.
I'm Trevor Rogers from the DDS Employment and Day Services Division. I'm just giving another update on our SELN report and some of our SELN, which is State Employment Leadership Network committee activities. And so our report is now in the hands of leadership with all of our recommendations, our accomplishments. And so I will be able to follow up on that shortly, but I did want to bring out some of the different things that we've been able to accomplish in the meantime, because there are some pieces of the report that we've been able to accomplish, some of the recommendations from our committees, and some of those recommendations actually also fulfill some of our different and STEP and ARPA initiatives. So before I get into that, I do just want to share with everyone that the Employment and Day Services team presented at the Fourth Tuesday Forum last week, the Commissioner's Fourth Tuesday Forum on Innovative Options. It was Pathways to Integrated Employment, and we had more than 6 different people come and talk about their experiences, different DDS individuals talking about their experiences in different services. And we spanned all of our different service options from ISE, GSE, project search. We had individuals who own their own micro business and are self-employed. And so it's a really great thing to check out. And I recommend everybody see it because it makes a big difference hearing it in the words of our individuals instead of just hearing it from us all the time. I also just wanted to share that work is underway for our Innovative Employment Opportunity grants. I can't really share much more information at this time, but our team has been working very hard on this. We've talked about this in the past here, but these are grant opportunities designed to support small businesses and entrepreneurs with the goal of creating employment opportunities for individuals with IDD. And it's offered in 2 forms: seed money, which is exploratory grants, or larger implementation or expansion grants. Our Connecticut Customized Employment Certification course is now open again as well. Last time I was here, I was able to discuss that we had just announced our iterations of the course. There are 2 iterations currently going on, and then 2 more are going to be starting in February. This is really great. It's free to all of our provider agencies, and providers need to be certified to offer this service. The certification follows staff member, and only those staff can offer the service. And this is especially important because a lot of our transition plans do include information about customized employment, and customized employment is one of those services that some individuals may use to transition from a congregate to a non-congregate setting. While I'm bringing that up, I have to reiterate that we do also have our ARPA with our Appendix K change, which adopted one of our sound recommendations, which was an incentive for each provider staff member up to 10 per agency. So it's $3,000 for the payment, up to $30,000 per agency for a staff member who completes an employment training and expectations consistent with certain organizations such as APSE and ACRE. The Connecticut Customized Employment course is also one of those approved courses. And then I didn't mention this last time, but there is also an additional incentive. All the information is on the same memo as this one, which I shared last time, for technology first shift, or RESNA, for different assistive technology trainings, which is important as well. And then something very exciting in line with both our ARPA and STEP incentives and initiatives, not incentives, initiatives, but also our SELN recommendations, which was creating person-centered materials for individuals to access some of our services. This is something that's ongoing, but currently we have 3 brochures that have been released, all since the October 1st. So some of them came out a little later, but the earliest was October 1st that one came out. We have one on customized employment, on individual supported employment, and project search. And we have brochures coming on employment transition services and group supported employment services. And then we'll work even further to expand it for some of our further service options. But they are written in person-centered language for the individual job seeker. So it says, you will be doing this, and you will do this, this, and this. It's not written for us to explain. It's written as a piece to give to an individual, a family member, maybe even a provider when we're talking over some of our service options. And it explains in just simple terms, what is it you're going to be doing if you actually enter this service? What's the responsibilities on you? What are the goals? Things like that. That's a great first step. I have them linked here as well. They are all on our DDS website. On our Employment and Day Services page, there's a services button. And if you click that, it kind of gives a little blurb about each service and then the links to the brochures. But I will also send this PDF to Keith afterwards so that he can send it out to everyone, and everyone will have access to these materials because they are really excellent and a great resource. In addition, I know last time I was here, I talked about our one-time employment incentives guide. A nice companion piece that's been released is our ISE and CE, so individual supported employment and customized employment comparison document. This is important because these are our 2 one-time employment incentive options for non-annualized funding options, meaning funding that doesn't come out of an individual's annual budget. So we have on the left side, it discusses if an individual is going through our one-time employment incentive through ISE, what does that look like? If they're going through CE, which is also paid through the same non-annualized funding, what that looks like. And then the second page reviews even further, what are the responsibilities and expectations of individuals in that service? And by individuals, I mean all the different stakeholders. So the individual job seeker, the family or guardian, the provider agency staff, the case manager, and the resource manager. What are your expectations in this process? Again, both of these are non-annualized funding options. So methods that we can use for individuals who are trying to seek employment or seek more employment. And so these are a really great resource for internal use, but also for our provider agencies as well. And when we're talking to individuals and families, to making sure that they understand and have informed choice about all the different service options that are available. And then finally, our employer resource. This is brand new. It is linked on our DDS website. And again, it's linked here so we can share. It is a resource for employers about hiring individuals with disabilities. This is something that we've been asked for a long time. It was a SELN recommendation, and it's also one of the one of our STEP action steps, one of the things that the agency is doing in line with our STEP initiative. It explains some of the different aspects of hiring individuals, some of the benefits. It goes over federal and state specific tax credits and benefits, as well as some of the state agency resources that are available to individuals who are employed. And then finally, on the first page, on the bottom, there is a QR code, which is to join a DDS list of businesses or employers who are open to hiring individuals with disabilities. So employers can fill out this by scanning this QR code or clicking the link on our website or on this flyer. And it's just so employers can give their name and contact information to say, we we hire a lot of individuals with disabilities, or maybe we want to hire individuals with disabilities. A way to put them on a list so that when we're looking at different employment options for individuals, we'll have a list of employers that we know there's an experience here, and there's a precedent here for working with this employer or business. We have a way in already because they've let us know we want you to come in the door. I can say that we already have, I don't want to say this is brand new, but I know we have a couple of businesses already signed up. And in one of our meetings last week for customized employment, we were able to actually bring up one of these lists as a way to get somebody in the door for an informational interview for customized employment services. So that's what we're really looking for here, is to have a list available internally so that case managers know different places that they can refer to and try to get in the door, just making all this information a little bit more accessible. So those are my updates. I'm not sure if there are any questions, but a lot of great stuff going on in employment and day services, working towards making some of our recommendations in the SELN report active and looking how all of those things overlap with some of our STEP initiatives so we can really put our resources into some of these different activities. I see Beth, you have your hand up?
Thanks, Trevor. This all looks great. With the employer list, I mean, I'm just wondering if there's any kind of screening or vetting of the employer. You know, we often have people who want to go to employers who will pay them under the table, et cetera, and we're not going to certainly support that. So I'm just kind of wondering if there's any kind of vetting or screening, or just can anybody go put their list on their name, their business name on that list?
So this is very new. What I can say is that's a great recommendation. It's something we'll bring up. We haven't even made this list accessible to anyone else yet. I was just able to hop on because we created it to look, because someone who had joined was someone at FedEx who we went to a meeting about for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And the individual was looking into that area. But what I can say is we will have this list. So it's something that on our end, we can always work on creating some standards around that, as in reaching out and confirming things, because I do agree with you. Safety is always of the utmost importance. So that's a good recommendation. That's something that I can work on in the background.
Okay, great. Thanks. Looks really good, Trevor.
Jennifer, you have a question?
I do. Thank you. Trevor, that really great resources and incentives. I do love the incentives. I have to say, though, that anytime we can annualize those funds, I'd much rather see that, because the work is ongoing and not, you know, even one person, you know, that reaches some of these incentive levels may have a change in their service need and have to go through this again. So, you know, when we can look to annualize the funding, I would appreciate every opportunity to do that.
Thanks, Jen. That's a good point. And we're always looking in, when we have the employment incentives, what is the plan for long-term supports? Because the point Jen's making is that it's one-time non-annualized funding. So it's funding that's there to help an individual transition, but we need to make sure that there's that ongoing supports in place as well.
And I think it goes without saying that it needs to be at a high enough level to be meaningful. The funding.
Duly noted, Jennifer. Thank you for that.
In the minute.
Any other? Did you have another question? Okay. All right, any other questions for Trevor? As always, Trevor, appreciate your help with this committee. All right, next, I do not see Lauren on the call. So just to give you guys a quick communication update that's meaningful to this committee, the employment video was shot. It's going through its final edits, and it should be available. I'm not saying this week, but it may be available next week. So I have not seen any cuts of it yet, so I'm hopeful to see it soon. Trevor, you have a question with that?
So I just want to share on this topic. So I was able to go and watch the filming. One of our EDS team members, it was very involved in getting the individual, and as well, he talked a little bit in it, and I've got to see a few of the cuts, and it is fantastic. I'm not going to give any more information, but all I can say is it's really amazing, and it's something that's worth waiting for because it's really great, and it touches upon so many different pieces that everyone's going to love to see. So I'll leave it at that, but everyone, it's worth the wait, trust me.
Yeah, if it's like the first four, I thought they did a really good job on them. So I was hopeful that we'd have it by today's meeting, but you know, those final cuts and making sure it's right and all the right people see it before it goes out is important too. So, all right. If Lauren does come on later on in the meeting, I'll make room for her if she has any other updates. But next we have our data update. Sarah is our fellow from Yale that's been working with us, if you haven't met her yet. So Sarah, you're up.
Hi, lovely to meet everyone. I'm Sarah Olominick, and I'm the Governor's Fellow working with DDS on the performance outcomes for the ARPA initiatives. So that includes systems transformation and includes a whole other range of initiatives as well. And so what I'd like to do is sort of walk you through how we're thinking about outcomes evaluation generally, so you can see our tracking process and how we're looking at, you know, tracking the impact of these initiatives over time. And then I'll really dive into, you know, what do we know about our day outcomes so far, where we are, where we think we're headed, and feel free to chime in at any point with questions. It looks like my video has frozen. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I won't worry about it. Ping me in the chat if something comes up here. So I'm going to share my.
Try it again.
Oh no, the roll was okay. Can you put me back to the other one?
Oh, all right. Gotcha. You all set?
I am all set. My incoming video for some reason is frozen, so you'll need to flag me down with your voice if you have a question. But feel free to jump in at any point. Can you see the ARPA performance outcomes transforming service spreadsheet here on my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So just to give you a really quick overview, you know, we're doing performance evaluation for a whole range of initiatives, and that includes, you know, all of the day initiatives and the day transitions. And so most of those fall under this bucket of transforming service, where we're also looking at, you know, individuals who are moving to supportive housing. There's also this bucket of technology for independence, which includes things like the incentive outcome payments that Trevor was just talking about, you know, payments for job coach training, payments for shift, and then also, you know, our assistive technology incentives, employment network, and some internal things focused on enhancing workforce. We've got a bucket for supporting providers directly, and that includes, there were those workforce incentive payments that went out directly to providers. There's the infrastructure through technology payments. And then finally, there's a range of initiatives that are very much focused on improving how we work within DDS. So that kind of gives you a sense of all of the different things that we're tracking. So I'm going to walk us through just this first page, and I know this is very much a spreadsheet and a lot of data, and I'll take you into a little bit more digestible section on the day transitions here in a minute, but I want to make sure you see how it sort of fits into our larger tracking. So you have sort of this right here would be the initiatives. So we'll just look at supportive housing as an example. So we have some primary outcomes, which would include the DDS supported individuals who are in supportive housing right now. And also the projected number of individuals who we think will be in supportive housing by the end of the ARPA period. And we're looking at everything compared to a baseline value. So at the start of this project, that number was 0. And then we're updating this quarterly. So the numbers on this sheet right now are mostly from September 30th of this year. So we're just about to do another update as we're coming to the end of the year here. And so if you see numbers, particularly with regards to, you know, day or residential transitions that don't quite match where you think we should be, that it's because those numbers are delayed a little bit. So you can see here that we had, you know, as of Q1, we had 31 individuals who were in LIHTC supported housing. Our goal was 100, so we were already a third of the way there, which is excellent. But if you take into account all of the projects that are committed and all of the spots that we know are going to be opened up, that are scheduled to be opened by the end of the ARPA period, that's actually expected to be 127 individuals, which would surpass our goal of getting 100 folks into that place, which means we're at 127%. And so that's all excellent. It means we're very much on track towards meeting those goals. And again, those numbers we'll be updating again here soon. So hopefully we'll see some progress moving forward. So here's our systems transformation. And so we're tracking, there's a little bit of separate, here we're, oh, sorry about that. Here we're tracking residential transitions and day transitions a little bit separately. But we also have this kind of master list of primary outcomes where we're just looking at overall transitions. So as of the end of the September 30th quarter, we had 13 transformation plans that had been approved. And that included 71 approved day transitions and 37 approved residential transitions. So we're about a third of the way based on those numbers at that time towards meeting these goals of 100 residential transitions and 200 day transitions, which is great progress. And I'm about to show you that we've made a great deal of progress since then as well. And there's other indicators here about programs restructured, transitions initiated. So we're looking at kind of when does the individual first transition, how many of those have we seen? And then we'll check again, when they get to that 60-day mark and that transition is counted as complete. But we're also curious, was this transition a good fit for the individual beyond that completion date? And so we're going to be tracking just sort of for our own impact purposes. Did that individual stay in that new placement 6 months beyond, or did we see a lot of folks kind of coming in, maybe stay a little bit past that 60-day mark and then move back kind of into that congregate setting because the move just wasn't a good fit for them? So we're going to be looking at that going forward to really see what sort of the longer run impact of this systems transformation initiative is. So that's really probably the biggest thing on day. As of that September 30th date, I believe we had, let's look, 3 day transitions initiated. So it's still starting off a little bit slow, and we had started 6 residential transitions. And that's probably, let me give you a quick overview of the rest of the spreadsheet, and then we'll dive into those numbers and where we stand now. So you can see we're also tracking a similar range of metrics for the initiatives that have to do with technology for independence, the initiatives that deal with directly supporting providers, and the initiatives that talk about improving our internal operations. And as a note, this may already seem like a lot of rows on this spreadsheet, but for all of these initiatives, there's often sort of additional performance indicators. Let's look at those rows here, where there's just other things about these initiatives that we've been asked to track or that project leads have identified as being important for telling the story about how these initiatives are moving forward. And so part of that is tracking the demographic data of individuals who are included in transformation plans and who are going to be making these transitions. And then also things like, average lawn score in the CRS and CLA as a whole, as we're sort of moving through this process. Are we seeing changes there? So that can give you a sense of the level of detail that we're looking at. I should have just changed tabs. Did that work with my screen share? We see a new spreadsheet now? Perfect.
Yes, we do.
So this is our list of agencies who have approved transformation plans. It also includes some transformation plans that are pending. And so there may be some changes before those are finally approved by the regions. But you can kind of see a projection of if those plans were to be approved as they are, where we would be. So pending plans are in yellow and the currently approved plans are in white. So if we just look at kind of based on our approved total, we've got approved plans for 97 individuals in day transitions and 37 individuals in residential transitions. So that's already, further along than where we were as of Q1. We're about halfway to our goal of 200 day transitions. But if all of these plans that are kind of within that approval process right now are approved, roughly as is with similar numbers of individuals, we're already going to be at 171 day transitions. So getting very close to meeting that 200 threshold. Which is really great news. And to give you a little bit more of a breakdown, we are tracking these transitions as they happen. That's a little bit of a tricky thing to do because the data comes from a lot of different sources, and there's the date when the individual maybe starts a new service, but then there's the date that that transition is approved by the region, and there's the date that the incentive is approved for payment and paid out to the provider. And so there's a lot of different dates that we could be using to say, when does a transition start and when does it end? And so this is looking more at services that have been approved for an individual. When did the new service start? And then when was the individual in that service for 60 days? And so based on that, we've got 3 day folks who have transitioned to transitional services from a congregate setting. And that transition, I believe, is complete. We're still waiting on sort of the fiscal validation to show that those incentives have been approved and sent out. And then we've got a slew of residential folks here as well, who have all been moving into IHS. And so you can kind of see that, you have the date when the transition started, and then about 60 days after that is when we're estimating that transition should have been complete. But our information is sometimes a little bit delayed by the time that completion is verified and then data gets all the way to us. So we're expecting more of those transitions to be beginning shortly. And I'm hopeful that when we go around and do our update for the end of the year, that we'll see more day and residential transitions. Any questions on any of those tracking tools? Great.
Seeing none. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. All right. Oh, Beth, go ahead.
Thanks. I do have a question. Thank you, Sarah. I'm just wondering if this data will be available to providers, and how will that look?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Also, Sarah Oleman, Governor's Fellow at DDS. I believe that we're looking at different ways to make this data available. I think a lot of that's going to be with the communications team. And so I can't say exactly in what form that's going to be happening, but I think certainly one of the goals that I've heard as we're putting together this tool is that it streamlines that process. For if we have all that data in one place, it's easier for us to be able to communicate that data out to providers and other interested parties. So it's a great question, and it's helpful to know that there may be interest in that as well. So thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions while we have Sarah on? All right, thank you, Sarah. And Betsy, you came in just in the nick of time. You are up for your agenda item, so appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me. No, just coming from a provider TA session because we are continuing those. All right, so I assume Sarah gave everybody the dates on numbers of plans, numbers of transitions. So we are continuing to support providers who are sending in new plans, providers who are preparing to and continuing to implement their plans, as well as coordinating with DDS. There's been some concerns raised about sort of consistency of reporting and payments across the regions. So we are coordinating with DDS and the regions, who of course are DDS, but coordinating to iron some of that out and make sure that there's consistency, as well as clear information for providers on what they can expect and the routes that they should be taking. There are, from the day perspective, I mean, across the board, but there's been new guidance out related to restructuring. So previously, a step plan had to include individuals transitioning from congregate to non-congregate, or in the case of day, from sort of like a DSO to a vocational approach to be eligible. Now restructuring a congregate day to support people with greater behavioral or medical needs, such as individuals who have not previously been able to find or receive supports. That restructuring, with that emphasis of kind of building the full continuum of supports, that alone can be eligible for an incentive, even if nobody in that setting is currently planning to transition. So DDS did send out a memo covering this guidance, I think, I want to say like 2 weeks ago. It might have gotten lost in people's for your post-Thanksgiving email shuffle, but if you check through your Everbridge emails, there is an update on that guidance that went out. So the emphasis of STEP does continue to be supporting individuals to make those transitions. However, the broader vision has always been, how do we support an arena of options where individuals can get supports in the setting that best fits their needs. Jennifer's got a hand up.
Yeah, Jennifer from UCP Eastern Connecticut. So just to clarify, agencies can get an incentive for creating capacity to bring in people to our congregate day program settings if they have a higher level of need.
This is Betsy Bella from Deloitte. So how I get that one. So it's not just about expanding the day program. It's about, as you're receiving referrals, have them for your day program as a whole to be transitioning to support people with greater behavioral medical needs. Now we know that many providers, your day programs already are for people with greater behavioral medical needs, as they should be. But DDS is also aware that there's providers where, or because of how their referrals have been, or because of exceptions people have asked for, that that's not always the universe of people who are currently in a DSO. So if you were to be supporting people with, all I can see is Beth's face. But
yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and my thought on this is, you know, it really kind of penalizes people like ourselves who already provide these services to people who are very medically complex. And although we're moving people into more employment settings out of our day program settings, we're moving very complex people into those, creating capacity to take on more individuals who are either have medical or behavioral support challenges. So if we were one of those agencies that said, I'll take the easy people, we'd now be incentivized to take people that are not as easy to support. And that's what I'm hearing. And I'm sure that is not the intention. The intention is to support all people and equally provide financial incentives to all providers.
Betsy Bella from Deloitte. Both things can be true. It cannot be the intention, and it can also be the situation. You know, these are concerns we've heard about other elements of STEP previously, where that idea of we already do it, we've already done it, we don't have anybody else to transition. And I think that's part of why this guidance came into place. So I would encourage folks to talk with your regions, right? So the Appendix K, the document where DDS and CMS came to agreements on, you know, where are incentives for, it's very clear about it's for restructuring to support people with greater behavioral medical needs, but restructuring is not clearly defined. So I think there's room as providers approach DDS with interesting plans or with revisions and updates to their plans, where, you know, if you can make the case for why this is new and different within it, or why it really meets a need, the regions are interested in discussing. DDS has created to promote that consistency across, any restructuring focused plans are being reviewed across all three regions together to make sure that there's consistency. So I don't have the answers you want, but I do have that middle ground answer of the really pushing message across the board is, if you have something that you think is going to better support people to receive services who are not receiving supports, or to have greater independence and choice, you should write up that plan and you submit it, and us and your regions can help you figure out how does it fit into this framework. Beth, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Betsy. And Beth Fisher from CUNY Employment Opportunities. I appreciate the difficulty in answering that question for you, and I'm not looking to put you on the spot, but for the record, I just have to say that I share the same concerns as Jennifer. It does feel a little punitive to agencies who've been working with challenging behaviors and trying to get them into employment all along. So, not sure what triggered this, but it feels a little uneven.
Betsy Bell from Deloitte. Thank you, Beth. Jennifer, I see you got your hand up.
I do. Jennifer from UCP Eastern Connecticut again. So slightly along the same lines of really wanting to support people and kind of meeting them where they are. We created this program, this new STEP program, to move people out of a congregate setting into a more independent employment setting, right? So we did this, and we had an individual who came, and so we were looking to make those changes from the individuals we support in our current programs and move them into a new program that we created. But we had an individual that came from another agency because they weren't able to find the support they needed from that agency. And we proposed that they join our STEP program and serve them through our program. And I've been in contact with my region about it, and there's still not a decision on whether or not that qualifies. Because they came from a GSE and now they're in our STEP program, which helped them get employment in individualized employment and with IDB and moving toward ISE. So because we didn't move them from one of our programs and identify them initially in the STEP program, there's question as to whether or not they qualify. So I know that's a unique situation for us, but it was just something to consider, that if the overall goal is to move an individual, not keeping the providers out of it, but to move an individual from a congregate setting to a more individualized employment setting, then the incentive should apply to the agency that's able to help them do that.
This is Betsy Bella from Deloitte. Thank you for raising that. So absolutely, providers can submit plans that include taking or supporting individuals to move from supports with one agency into supports with their agency. There's very clear guidance on that, where I think, or the sticking point here is that it wasn't in your plan, which becomes
Right.
a little bit of a back and forth waffly situation. So I would love for us to connect offline on this, and see where we can support through, and just make sure that everybody's on the same page regarding the guidance around partnerships, because that should be a relatively easy hurdle to pass. It's it kind of is the same theme that's been raised here about this idea of, if you already did it, right? The restructuring to end sub-minimum wage arrangements has been a sticking point for a lot of folks, because there are providers who completed that shortly before because that's the other restructuring piece, where you can submit a plan that's just for ending a sub-minimum wage arrangement.
Mhm.
And there are providers who ended their sub-minimum wage arrangements even shortly before that guidance was put out. But for anyone who still is operating sub-minimum wage arrangement, please do know that there are opportunities to end them through STEP and incentives for it. But that question of when it was in the plan, just because, they have to be able to run through their accounting and be really clear and make sure everything's above board. Which, of course, you all are working really hard, and you're not in it for the funds, but you hope to receive the extra funds so that you can reinvest them to better support individuals. We know.
That's exactly it. It does require a higher level of support. We are using some additional staff to support the individual in their initiative. It's somebody that we didn't know, that is new to us. And so we had to get to know them a little bit more in order to provide it. And, so while I'm sure they would have liked to have stayed with the provider they had been with for quite a while in the GSE, when the GSE was no longer available to them and they had no other option available to them, they sought out, some other services. And, so while they weren't in the initial plan, the outcome for that person is the same. So, in just staying focused on the outcome there, I would hope that there would be some sort of incentive that could be applied.
This is Betsy Bella from Deloitte. Let's set up a TA session and we can talk through all of the pieces. There might be an opportunity, especially if they haven't actually moved into ISE yet, which it sounds like they might still be in IDB. Yeah. There might be an opportunity to update your plan to put them into the plan.
It may be a while, but yeah.
That's
okay.
Yep, that happens.
We'll talk about it. Thank you, Betsy.
We'll set something up.
This is Keith Lavalette at DDS, and Jennifer, by connecting with Deloitte, a lot of the questions that Deloitte tries to answer or unable to answer, they bring it to the central office group, our Peter, Greg, and myself, and to try to work through some of these answers. And a lot of them aren't easy, and we got to try to, discuss how they were written with the Appendix K and how they were interpreted and that type of thing. So not always easy.
Betsy Bella from Deloitte, right? We have a conversation, we try to figure it out, we take it to Peter to Greg, we try to figure it out, then they run it up the chain, then we come back to the provider. Which is to say that it's been so wonderful to be part of this journey with folks in Connecticut as everyone tries to figure out how can we use the structure of this program to move pieces through. And please do continue to voice concerns because we've seen many times DDS figure out ways to respond to these concerns. So we hope to hear them. And every now and again, there's a TA session that's maybe a little more of a venting session, and that's okay too. But because those really do turn into improved guidance, updated FAQs. There are new FAQs up on the provider gateway. They include some of that guidance around things like putting in your one-time request to receive payment for a completed outcome. For information on the updated guidance that I opened up discussing. So those are some of the big flashy new FAQs, but we also continue to look at and revise and update them, even when it's smaller things like tweaking the language around notice of opportunities related to assistive technology, because it has changed a lot since that question first got put in. So there is an updated FAQ. We are continuing to offer technical assistance office hours. Those might start sunsetting early next year. We've had pretty low attendance, but we are seeing an uptick in one-on-one technical assistance opportunity requests. So, and part of that might be because we have been sharing and highlighting a new summary of the plans. So this is submitted and approved plans. We were able to share that at a meeting with the ARC and with the Alliance providers. And we are, the great news is that plans keep getting approved. And so we're updating it to add the new plans and to then be able to put it out. But that should be out soon. And it's been what people have been able to see pieces of it. It's been really well received to be able to see some of the highlights across the board. So got a little derailed in my updates, and that's totally fine. I think where we are most productive is in these back and forth conversations. So we are continuing to see a lot of progress on the step plan pieces from DDS. Those are the elements beyond just the provider incentives, although those are an important part of it. But some of the pieces in terms of things like setting up benefits counseling and making that more accessible to individuals. So please do continue to stay tuned. There, and to continue to raise where you see concerns and issues. Any questions or comments? Keith, anything I missed?
No, I think you did fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Keith Lavalette at DDS. The last agenda item we have is just the ARPA project updates. Talked a lot about the transition plans today, and as of today, there's 15 plans that are approved. 4 plans are pending approval. And as Sarah stated, there's 171 people for the day transitions and 55 for the residential. The step action task. Deloitte has put together a list of activities which encompasses various facets of the DDS system. Owners continue to make progress on completing assigned tasks. The focus is on employment, AT and remote supports, supporting providers and outreach to individuals and families. And, it's small steps towards an overall transformational change that we're working on. On the DDS website is a simplified incentive guide. All the incentives are listed there with the amounts. It's under the provider section. So if you have any questions on the incentives, they're right on the website. With assistive technology, the Operations Center continues to work on the contract for assistive technology evaluation and assessment vendors. As a reminder, a vendor will be assigned as the preferred contractor to each region to assist individuals with evaluations and purchasing AT equipment. The vendors are in the North and South Region CIB. In Fairfield County, it's STAR, and the rest of the West, it's Midstate ARC. And the target date for that, completing that is, or to get that going, is January 1st. Currently, there are 100 DDS staff that are working towards completing an assistive technology course through California State University, Northridge. There are 3 notice of opportunities currently out for assistive technology equipment. 1 for individuals and families, 1 for providers, and 1 for the day program. An assistive technology remote support consultant is coming on board sometime in January. The AT&Me program participants continue to climb. There's 49 individuals trained to date. Patricia Sambala continues to work with case managers to increase participation. Refresher trainings have also been established. We've talked in the past about the rewarding work. That employment network is up and running. Individuals who are looking for staff can set up job postings. Individuals looking for jobs can place their resumes. And the Operations Center and the Communication Divisions are working on trying to encourage more families who self-direct to participate in the employment network. The case management system, DDS, has hired a project manager and a number of business analysis for the new DDS case management system. They reviewed 5 to 7 states that currently have case management systems and to see if DDS can use one of them. And they have narrowed it down to 2 different states. And finally, the universal assessment. DDS and DSS have decided to work together with a vendor to see how all the state of Connecticut agencies can be brought on board with the concept of universal assessments and see how this system will fit within all the state agencies. And that's all I have on the updates. Any questions, Jennifer?
I'm just full of questions today. This is Jennifer from UCP Eastern Connecticut. In regard to the universal assessment, is that the LON tool? Is that what you're talking about, or what does that refer to?
Yes, it includes the lawn tool. They're looking at a statewide system where everybody utilizes the same system. Still not sure where this is all going to go. You know, we'll just have to wait and see how DDS and DSS work through this, and whether the current lawn system continues as is or if it changes.
Okay. And my second question is in regard to the assistive technology vendors. You said they're the preferred vendors. So if I contact one of the preferred vendors and they cannot help me, or, you know, it's 6 months away, are there other vendors that can be utilized?
Yes, they are the preferred vendors in the region. So if you can get something from one of the other vendors, you can essentially go to them. Or if you know of someone else, you can go through them. It's just they are the preferred people in the regions to provide that equipment. So case managers will recommend them first.
Okay.
And Sean, go ahead. Maybe you have you're on mute, Sean.
So Sean Bannon, DDS. Yeah, so the assistive tech RFP was for assistive technology assessments. So that's really, they're the preferred assessment vendor. And then as for the regions, and then as Keith mentioned, if someone was going to work outside of them, that would be okay as well. But they're the preferred vendors. And one other point of clarification, I believe we'll be probably looking at February 1 as a start date too for that.
Oh, I was under the assumption that it was a January 1st with one times and then starting February 1st. Am I
Right, so
wrong on that?
yeah, so the assessments, we're hoping that the contract will be signed, executed, and assessments able to start in February.
Gotcha. Right. Beth, questions?
Thanks, Keith. Beth Fisher, CUNY Employment Opportunities. I have two questions. The first goes back to the universal assessment. So if I'm understanding correctly, DES and DSS are working to create something that would work across all human services agencies. Is that correct? And if so, are those other agencies at the table? Because it just seems to me, you know, DCF, DEMIS, DDS, maybe, you know, looking at different things to make those determinations.
And yeah, that is my understanding, that they're working on it, but many of the state agencies do things differently. So how this all comes out in the wash in the end, you know, it's to be seen. And you know, I'm not quite sure in my estimation how long this may take me. Maybe a while before anything comes out of it, but they're looking at it, and they're looking at this universal assessment tool.
Interesting. My second question, and I don't know if this would have come up in the communication update or not, but I'm just curious about, you know, what kind of feedback has there been from families specifically about the move to you know, into independent employment. I mean, anecdotally, I'm hearing parents say it sounds great. It's not for my kid. We have more GSE referrals than we can take. And so I'm just kind of curious if that's just something unique that I'm seeing, or, you know, what's it looking like in a bigger picture?
I'm gonna check with Amber or Trevor to see if they get anything through their department on that. They may be able to answer it better than I am.
Hi, Keith. Hello, everyone. Thank you. This is Amber Carter, Director of Employment and Day Services with DDS. So to your question, that probably is accurate because of multiple reasons, and one being, GSE and things that are familiar. Folks want to know that they're going to have some form of a guaranteed service. And so what we're working towards now is just educating case managers, educating family members, working, as you've heard tonight, through various different incentives, and also working at various different rates and things of that nature to address some of that angst and fear, if you will, around educating the various different pathways to employment. There are different things that are being explored with our sister agency, ADS, Connecticut PI, which is the Connecticut Pathways to Integrated Employment. There are other opportunities that we're also working with, such as the work-based learning experience, which is also with ADS. So we're trying to find ways to help families understand that there are other options in regards to going through pathways to get employment. Just bearing in mind and reminding everyone that we are an employment first agency, but we also understand person centeredness. And so, I think it's going to take time, and that's what we're working through the various different step initiatives and the action items to make sure that we're educating and that we're assisting families to help them understand that employment, if that is something that the individual and the families would like to obtain, that it is a goal that they can accomplish. But we're not forcing it in the sense of you have to do this now, this has to happen now, but we're trying to show that there are many ways to get there. We have employment transition supports as well, services to help expose individuals. So I understand from the provider perspective. Well, let me not say I understand. I can relate, if you will, from the provider perspective as to some of the influx around GSE and some of our more familiar services. But that's one of the things that we're working through, and we continue to try and have these conversations so that we can figure out how to best support families and individuals, so that employment won't be that it's not for me um, default type of position for those who are looking. And I think also it's important, as we're working with our transition advisors and working with the regions and the districts, the LEAs, to educate families very early on so that it can begin to be planted with them. And later, as they begin to prepare and to think about employment, instead of getting to that point of, okay, now we're in the 12th grade or what have you, and my child is transitioning, oh my goodness, I'm inundated. So we've been doing things like going out to various different parent meetings and things of that nature to educate families and linking them with the various resources, not only with DDS, but with SDE and ADS. So I hope that provides a little bit of a synopsis, but I truly understand. Thank you.
Mhm. Keith, Beth Fisher from CUNY, just to respond. Thank you for that, Amber. Yeah, I think that if we can catch individuals, when they're coming out of school, that's really kind of the hope for the future. The parents I'm hearing from typically have their children already in our system. And, there is something about the familiarity, but there's also, a couple of other factors, I think. One is, the the ability levels that parents are feeling like, it's a stretch. And then, the other more logistical issue is that it's Monday through Friday, and you're not going to find independent jobs necessarily that are going to be Monday through Friday first shift that are going to meet the needs of the parents. And I don't know how we get around that and help parents understand that and have other alternatives. But I think it's a real factor, for many families. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. May I respond to that, Keith? This is Amber. Yes.
Go ahead, Amber.
Thank you, Beth. I just want to just add that, we definitely recognize that at DDS, and one of the other things that, as you mentioned, it's not only about, finding traditional working hours for the individuals, but also transportation plays a big part of that as well. So one of our proactive approaches is, DDS has assembled this transportation committee where we're looking and we're trying to get together and gather information from various stakeholders. We just issued out a survey to get pretty much a pulse and a lay of the land from the individual's perspective as it relates to our transportation system. When I say our transportation system, I'm talking about your public transportation, provider transportation, families, and all of those other, and also your things like Lyft and Uber and all of that, and so that we can get a better idea on how to address one of the major factors that impacts employment, which is viable, reliable, safe transportation. So we're having those conversations. We got a great response to the survey. We will be sharing those results soon in our upcoming meeting, in the transportation committee meeting. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with our stakeholder groups as we implement some of our recommendations from a DDS perspective on how we can best try and figure out ways to support individuals so that transportation is not an unintended or unintentional barrier. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Any other questions? All right, this is Keith Lavalette at DDS. If you look on the agenda, there are no other future dates for this meeting. This is the last meeting of the day committee. And first off, I'd like to thank all the committee members for their support and efforts and time during this past, I think it was year and a half that we've been meeting. It's been I think we've accomplished a lot. I think this has been a great group for me, so I appreciate everybody's efforts. Just to let people know, Peter Mason will be retiring officially right before December. I think it's the 21st. Greg McMahon, who's been part of the ARPA team, is leaving, I believe, December 12th. And I will be finishing up in the end of March. April 1st would be my final. So I still got a little time left. Gunnar Abrahamson is taking over for the group of us, and he's doing a fantastic job. So he will be working with Deloitte, myself, over the next few months. So a lot to be done, and I think as we move over the next year and a half of the ARPA period, we're looking to get the transitions moving along and successful, and hopefully we'll see a lot of success as we get through this period. So again, appreciate all of your efforts. And on that note, I guess we're done. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye all.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, folks.